Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchising. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. I'm Lance Graulich, your host, of course. You already knew that, right? So welcome back. I love to talk to anybody when it comes to franchising, but I especially love to talk with successful franchisees. And that's who I have today. I have a gentleman that's been a franchisee for 7 years. And I know we've talked about this before, but franchising isn't all about burgers and fries. This isn't a McDonald's franchisee. You know, McDonald's, you have to be a millionaire to own a McDonald's. And I don't know if it's the best franchise anymore, to be honest. You can get a better bang for your buck at some other franchises, although I love me some Mickey D's. So without further ado, 7 years, he's a business coach, a sales coach. I'm going to let you tell him. He's going to tell you what he does. So welcome to the show, Mr. Brad Schneider. He's a franchisee for The Growth Coach. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, and thank you for being here. All right, so McDonald's we know is a great franchise. It's been around forever. You do have to be a millionaire to own it. But you know, today there are so many franchises like The Growth Coach that have been around long enough that some people haven't even necessarily heard of. But share with everybody, Brad, what is The Growth Coach?
The Growth Coach is a business and sales coaching franchise, like you said. We work with small and medium-sized businesses, and I even hesitate to say businesses because I work with nonprofit organizations as well. And we typically help them grow in one of three ways. Either we work with the owners and the executives to figure out how to get more out of their day and balance their life and be able to be more productive. We work with their management teams to help them become more effective in what they're doing. And then we also work on the sales side and help, especially those entrepreneurs that didn't realize that they were becoming salespeople when they started a business, help them figure out a sales process and a sales system that works for them. So growth in three ways, and that's how we typically deliver it.
Love it. Well, how did you get involved? Give us your history, because, you know, a lot of our listeners love to understand, you know, how do people get into franchising? Is franchising right for me? So how did, you know, give us your history. What'd you want to be coming out of high school, college, whatever?
Well, coming out of high school, I was going to Bowling Green State University because I was going to become the next play-by-play voice of the Cleveland Indians. And
Love it.
I got there and started working in the campus radio station, you realize quickly how much you have to really love radio, because you are going to be doing promotions and all kinds of crazy stuff for free. And that was just the opportunity to go to a small town somewhere and hopefully maybe someday get 1,000 breaks to kind of get to where you wanted to go. So after doing that for a couple of years, still working on an English degree because the mentors I talked to said being able to write and communicate would be kind of important in radio. I kind of was scrambling what to do, got a minor in tech writing and started working as a technical writer. And as I was doing that, I was working for a contract firm in the Cleveland area at Rockwell Automation. And I learned I had a little bit of a gift to get information out of electrical engineers and figured out how I could communicate with them and get information. And that company that I was working for there, I followed a leader friend of mine to a IT consulting company, which got me involved in organizational change and all the people side of technology. And that led me into about 15 years from there in two different about $1 billion size organizations, both family owned that had grown up, one publicly traded, one still private, doing everything HR, leadership development, sales training, coordinating distributor networks, things of that nature. And the last place that I was at for 7 years, I was there, quote unquote, to bring change to their HR group. And when I quickly realized they didn't want to change anymore, it was time for me to find something to do. And so I decided I wanted to go out on my own. A couple mentors from a couple of previous stops on the way, I talked to them about going on their own, as they had gone on their own and gone back into corporate life. And one of the biggest things that they told me to do was look for some place where I had resources available to me, because the hardest thing for them about being on their own without a franchise was that they had to work during the day, they had to market at night, and then they had to build what they sold so that they could go and deliver it the next day and repeat that process and how exhausting that was. And so I was looking for a partner that had something that could support me in that. And the growth coach certainly proved to be true.
I love it. So how did you find growth coach in the first place?
How we find everything nowadays. I just started Googling. I was trying to think of.
So what were you Googling? Did you know at that point, okay, I have a talent for helping businesses, obviously if they want to change, because that's, it doesn't, if some guy's 500 pounds, you're not going to be able to help him lose weight if he doesn't want to.
Fair enough. So yeah, so like I was always the guy at work that people came to talk about how do they deal with situations, the challenging boss, a big career decision, trying to get buy-in and support for an initiative, things of that nature. And I was always good at building relationships. And even as a external or internal consultant, like I was always able to sell consulting projects. The only thing for me is I just had never kind of brought the opportunity to the table. So, so I knew I could do those things. What I really needed was a partner that could kind of help me take those things that I was good at, and kind of help me kind of fine tune my, the tip of my pen, if you will, so that I could be successful.
So was it a Google search like, I want to be a coach, coaching franchise, something like that? Helpme.com. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no. It was, I was searching for business coaching companies and business coaching organizations, and stumbled into the growth coach amongst a few others in that search, and, put in some information, and they got a hold of me, and the rest is history.
I love it. Love it. So the growth coach, at that point, you joined them in 2015, about 7 years ago. Do you remember how many franchisees they had then and what your process was like? Because was this the very first time you investigated any kind of franchise?
I never looked at a franchise in any way, shape, or form before this. And in fact, the only reason why I started looking was that advice from friends on, having somebody to have your back to handle some of that load for you. And so as I started to look around at those things and find places for me, like one of the things that I really enjoy personally is I've coached a lot of baseball and softball with my kids. And I didn't want to go find another gig where I worked, a 12-hour day and then had to ask for an hour's worth of PTO so that I could go to get to a coaching gig and see one of my kids play. So I didn't want to be an employee. I wanted to be able to kind of own something. And that's where I got kind of pointed towards franchising.
The two best types of freedom: time freedom, where you make your own schedule, and money freedom. You get to make whatever you want to make.
Exactly. And that's what I tell people, like, there's days where I'm in the office at 4:30 in the morning, but when I choose to do it so that I can be out by 3:30, so I can, a couple of weeks ago was high school football playoff time. I was able to grab my kid from school at 2:45, and we were on the road and up and going to that game. But yeah, I put in a lot of hours before and after that, because you can't really enjoy the life of the business owner until you work the business, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and that's also our reward. You have to work, make the money, work and make the money. And, but we get flexibility. That's the beautiful part. So let me ask, at what point in this process, I'm assuming it might've happened, you were thinking to yourself, well, I know my friends are telling me, I just need support and resources. Was this a situation when you saw growth coach? Like, how many other things did you investigate before growth coach hit you and you're like, all right, this is it? And describe growth coach's process and how you got into it and got excited about it. That's the follow-up question.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I looked at two other coaching brands in addition to this one, and I had still not given up hope on kind of doing my own thing. And so while I was, what's the term nowadays? Quiet quitting my corporate gig.
Quiet quitting.
I was researching my next opportunities. For me, where growth coach stood out was, first off, the people in operations. I just really appreciated them. They were like-minded like me. It's an organization that certainly wants to make money, and it certainly wants to do well financially, but it's a service business at its core. And that really lines up with me value-wise. I wanted to be partnered with somebody that wants to have an impact with business owners and make some money and have some fun doing it, but really doing that kind of through service. And so that was probably the biggest thing that attracted to me. The other thing too was, and this is certainly borne out to be true in my practice. In my HR corporate gigs, I always got frustrated when I tried to buy training or coaching services from people, and I knew what we needed, and they kept shoehorning me into a product that they had.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about what we have with the growth coach and what I saw in that sales process is that what we have is really a framework of different tools and processes. And it's my job as the coach to figure out what my client needs and also listen to them, and not just hear what they say, but also maybe show them some things they haven't necessarily said to me as well. And then build solutions and build coaching programs around what those needs are. And that's what really was exciting for me about the growth coach. It was always client centric. It was never business or sales centric in terms of trying to fit people into things that we have.
Yeah. Here's this package. I know you don't need 62% of it, but the rest you do need. Sorry, the price is the price.
Right. I'd rather just give you 100% of what you need. And maybe, you know what, 40% of it you didn't even realize at the time. And that's okay, because, you know, there's all kinds of times where, you know, I'm probably the least handy guy you're going to talk to in this show in the next year. And if I go to the hardware store and if I'm asking for a certain thing, I'm really looking for somebody to tell me, hey, you also need the gaskets and everything else that go along with it. And so, you know, that's part of our job too, is helping open up those eyes of those business owners to see there may be more of what you have need-wise than maybe what you're even presenting to me.
Right. So talk a little bit about the process. So, you know, you fill out an online form, and these days you have franchise brokers like me, of course, that, you know, will shield you from the 800 calls, because people tend to inquire about a lot of brands, and I shield people from that. But in those days, I mean, even still, you know, you're filling out your form, they call you for an initial call. You know, you were obviously excited to get information. Walk me through how many different phone calls, what was that process like? How long did the whole thing start from first call to you becoming a franchisee?
If you want me to go back 7 years, I don't know if I could go back 7 hours.
You're not that old, Brad. Come on. You could remember most of this.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I would say it was probably August, September-ish of 2014 when I started that process and doing the research and getting in contact with the growth coach. And then I would say between December and September of that year, September to December, probably had 4 or 5 different phone calls with sales folks, operations folks, even talked with an existing franchisee. I even went so as far as finding somebody that was kind of close to me geographically and giving him a call and reaching out and kind of getting his perspective on things. And then in December, they had what we call Meet the Team, which we still do today, where we come in and visit the office, meet all the folks that support the brand and work for the brand, learn a little bit more in depth and detail about the brand. And then walking out of there, had a few questions, kind of went back and forth on kind of getting the information that I needed, and then started in training in March of that year and launched my business in May of 2015.
In May of 2015. Okay, good. Great. Yeah. Meet the Team Day for the listeners. Meet the Team Day, Discovery Day is a way to really get a candidate, get you a prospective franchisee in front of the corporate team, other key players, because, you know, whether like it's joining a fraternity or a sorority, you have to see each other, see how you like each other, make sure there's a good culture fit, obviously. And franchising is a two-way street. You both have to like each other. So, because this is a long-term relationship, obviously. So, and then you also mentioned validation, the opportunity to speak to existing franchisees, which, as you know, is incredibly valuable. How was their experience? How long did it take them to ramp up their business? You know, so obviously they passed your test on all levels. I guess it's fair to say, right?
Absolutely.
So what was the support like when you launched? Because that's kind of the magic question everybody tends to ask, whether it's an air conditioning brand or McDonald's or the growth coach. So, all right, well, now what? I gave you some money. Now what? So describe that sort of onboarding training process.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of 3-pronged to get you started, and then there's some ongoing support after that. So we have what we call a jump start process that, you go through, and it's all the kind of the basic mechanics of getting your business set up. And it's a step by step. So I know for me, I had no idea about creating an LLC or an S Corp or anything like that, just structuring the business. So some tools and some guidance on kind of, things that you need to do to kind of get the business up and running. And then that part transitions into just some of the basic marketing. Let's get your website up and moving. Let's go ahead and do some different things in terms of planning some of the top contacts. This is very much a relationship business. And so who are we going to be reaching out to, and kind of getting you prepped for that week of training, where in that week of training, we really get into product and service. And I think specifically for the growth coach, where we do a really good job is coaching is kind of the reward in this business. And it's really a sales business at the end of the day. And so we spend a lot of time walking through what it's like to go through our sales process. And we have a 4-step process that we kind of teach to help somebody that's never sold business coaching before, to be able to kind of step in and build that relationship, figure out the needs that folks might have, present solutions to them in language that they understand, and then ultimately gaining a commitment. And so that week of training is really focused on that. And then we have a really intensive 90-day kind of launch period. We call it the secret to my success. And it's a 90-day map of what are you going to do every day to get that business up and going and build that momentum quickly. And so you're out on your own at that point and you're launching your business, but you got a weekly call with one of our operations folks who's supporting you and giving you guidance in real time. And then one of the things that I've found to be the most valuable that we do is we actually hold regular coaching circles with our coaches. They're actually hosted by our coaches. They're not hosted by corporate. And they are kind of group coaching opportunities for us as coaches to get together and talk about what we're struggling with, talk about what's working well over in New York, and how can I apply that here? And just
I love
some real time kind of coaching and support from folks in the network that have done it, have built it out like you, that have sat there and had those moments once you got started of going, what am I doing? And why did I get into this? And just all that kind of support.
Wait, I have to work?
Well, yeah, exactly. That stuff too, right? And just all that kind of support that comes along the way. And we actually carry those coaching circles on. Even 7 years in, I still participate in a regular coaching circle with some different coaches in our network. And I'm always learning from those coaches, whether I help facilitate them or whether I'm actually just a participant. Sometimes you think as the experienced person, you don't get a lot out of those things, but then you realize that there's a little bit of nugget in training that maybe you forgot, that you stopped doing for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then you bring that back into your game. So those coaching circles are huge. And we're really an interesting network too, in that, I've actually coached for some other franchise networks, and they can be pretty competitive and sometimes, kind of going maybe hesitant to share information. In our network, it's been great. I mean, everybody wants to help. We're kind of helping people by nature as coaches. And so being able to find a network like the Growth Coach, where everybody's looking out for your success, not just your operations folks, but your fellow franchisees, is a great environment to be in.
You hit on a lot of great stuff. When you were talking about the needs, obviously, as you go through the steps and training and all that, and I was laughing because of what we said earlier about these other companies that take the off-the-shelf stuff and, well, module this or that, even though you don't need all of this. And of course, we all know the old expression, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. So I'm glad to hear that you are, wanting to prescribe the right, methodology for your clients, of course. But, I also absolutely love when you talked about the collaboration, because there's nothing better in a great franchise system. It's one thing to have a great corporate team, operations, have all those resources out there, success coaches, whatever they're called. Organizations have different names, franchise business consultants. But when you have an opportunity to really collaborate with the brothers and sisters, if you will, of the, existing franchisees, new and old, it's pretty amazing. That's where the power of franchising, to me, having been a franchisee multiple times, it's pretty damn powerful, isn't it?
Oh, it's immense. And that's one of those things that I tell folks when they're looking at franchises, what they should ask for. And that's, for me, that's a must ask question in validation calls is, as a franchisee, what kind of support do your fellow franchisees provide to you? And what kind of support network is that? And I mean, it's immense in that, and I, as a franchisee, it's like, okay, I'm here in corporate but there's always that feeling, well, they're not out here. They're not doing it. They don't, it's that classic perception that we always have. If somebody's not doing it, then they must not know. But when you have folks that are inside your network that are doing it as franchisees, and they're repeating the same things that you're hearing that are success keystones from folks in your corporate environment, it just makes it all the better.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, but that's the power of franchising. I had a guy the other day say, yeah, I was thinking of doing something on my own. And I was like, well, that's great. You can create something on your own. I said, have you considered franchising? He goes, no, I heard it's expensive. And I go, oh, really? Compared to what? So, I mean, you could do something on your own, but are you an expert in all facets of what you want to do? And he's like, well, no, I did a lot of electrical, and I know electrical pretty well, but I'm a handyman a little bit. Yeah, I guess I don't really know much about the business, and I was going to hire a consultant to help me with that. I'm like, well, that's why franchises exist, So
I'll give you a great example. Just this
please.
week, I got a cold lead from somebody, and they had some very specific HR issues, and I happen to know our guy in Puerto Rico is an expert in those things. And so I hop on the phone with Gamaliel. We're talking about the situation. He's giving me some thoughts and advice, and, we're moving the conversation down the road. I don't even know where I'd be going to try to find some good information to be in a good position to talk to that customer.
Yeah.
But with Gamaliel, it was, I believe, a quick instant message, a quick phone call. And within 24 hours, I'm looking a lot smarter and I'm providing so much more value to my client because I'm in that network, and Gamaliel will take my call.
Yeah. That's the thing. Franchising is all about the resources. You have all the resources. And then when you need something way outside the box, it's there in the collaboration with existing franchisees. So I love it. So let's talk about money. You can make money in your business, apparently. I'm being funny, of course.
You absolutely can. Yeah. And actually, that's one of the fun things about kind of business coaching as a franchise. It's probably one of the higher margin businesses you're ever going to get into because, from our perspective, I've got some office space. Obviously, I have some materials. But really, at the end of the day, it's kind of about your time and your energy. And when you execute the group coaching models like we do, that eliminates time as a limiting factor in many ways, where you can leverage putting groups of 4, 5, 6 business owners or managers together. And it really helps you drive that profitability for the business while still providing a great amount of value and providing that flexibility like we talked about previously.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So when you talk to some other top franchisees besides yourself, I mean, there seems to be some pretty decent gaps in some brands as far as top performers doing outrageous amounts of money, and you got the middle of the road, and then you always have a bottom 10% or so, or 20%. Is your group about the same? You got some stellar high performers, the middle ground, and then a couple stragglers that are either new or maybe they're older franchisees, because I've been part of brands, and that bottom 10% could be new franchisees that are getting their traction, so to speak. And then there's others that maybe don't listen so well or don't follow the system as well as they should.
Yeah, you definitely have that. The other thing I've learned too is that everybody gets into these businesses for different reasons. And, there's sometimes some folks that if you look at the performance numbers, they may look like kind of lower performers, but you know what? They may be doing this more as a part-time thing for them. Yeah. And, like there's one person in our network I'm thinking of in particular right now. He's got a really powerful nonprofit that he works with that he founded. And, the growth coach isn't necessarily his full-time thing. And so, you could look at him and be like, oh, you know what? He's maybe not being successful. But the reality of it is he's doing the things that he wants to do, and he's got the freedom to do what he wants to do, and he's able to make coaching part of it. So yeah, even sometimes, as you were saying, I would say definitely we've got the typical bell curve going on here. But one of the things I think that's unique about us is that because of kind of the lower barrier to entry from a coaching standpoint, as well as the opportunity to kind of scale it as little or as big as you want, sometimes the performance number isn't necessarily all that meets the eye.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, look, if it's a $45,000 investment, you have people doing this part time and are making $125,000 a year. You might look at them like, what are you doing? You could be making $300,000 a year, and people are like, no, I'm good. I got some other things going on. I don't really work hard, because in your type of business, it's the sky's the limit, right? You got to have guys making $500,000 a year up.
Yeah, the sky is the limit, and it really comes down to how much do you want to build that network, and how much effort do you want to put on the marketing and sales side. And that's really if you were to look at the top end of our network, don't get me wrong, there's some magnificent coaches that are there that are really effective, but every one of those folks at the top end of our network is an effective marketer, a strong salesperson, but not all of them came into the network as effective marketers and strong salespeople. They used the tools, they used the system, and they learned that and combined it with their experience to drive that success.
Yeah. Franchising is a great tool or resource to sort of even out your weaknesses.
Yeah. And for me, it was very much that way. As I mentioned before, as an internal consultant, I could walk into any team meeting and talk to an executive VP and, sell the opportunity to do an internal consulting project. For me, it was, okay, if I'm coming from the outside, how do I get into that meeting with the executive VP to be able to do that? And that's where Growth Coach has been really helpful for me, and teaching me some good marketing strategies and some good sales strategies to get known, to develop that network. And then, like so many businesses, is, there's, and I don't want to downplay the importance of, web marketing and social media and things like that. But in our business, it truly still is a relationship business. And so the more you build those relationships, the more that referral network's rocking. Yeah, the sky is absolutely the limit.
Yeah. Well, obviously strength in numbers for sure. And that's what you have, is all that support. So let's talk more about you. So 7 years with the company, are you still increasing in sales? What are you doing differently? Are you fat and happy at this point, making boatloads of money? Still just you though, right? Do you have a support team?
Yeah, actually, I have a virtual assistant who works part-time for me.
Oh, love it.
And then I've actually been working on right now trying to secure a couple of folks to actually come on board and help me kind of grow the business even more. So, this year, another record year for the Growth Coach of Central Ohio. One of the things I get asked a lot of times is, how much you're making and things of that nature. For me this year is where I went north of 2 times my corporate salary before I started the business. And there's no reason why I can't make that 3 or 4 times more. And for me, it's really trying to get some other folks involved. I've got the referral network working. I just need to be able to deliver and produce some more services for folks that are out there looking for the need. And so I've been spending a lot of time here wrapping up the year to go back to some old contacts in my network who I've worked with in the past to see if they're ready to make the leap.
I love that you said, more than or north of 2 times your corporate salary, 2 times your corporate salary, not to mention the freedom that you have and extra time to be able to do what you want when you want, because you're writing your schedule. Nobody else has any other expectations of you. And then my favorite subject that I talk to people a lot about is my CPA referrals, my tax specialist referrals, because so many people, Brad, as you now know, when they first get into their own business, most people don't realize, wow, look at all these write-offs I get to tap into. I don't even need to make as much money as I thought, because I now can write things off when I actually have an income and have profit.
Yeah, we just had that next tier discussion with my accountant about a month ago, and what's 23 and 24 look like, and what are some different things that we can do related to that. I mean, there's other opportunities too. One of the friends in my network owns investment properties, and he approached me the other day. He's like, I'm buying this property up in Maine. We've talked about doing some leadership workshops. Like, if I do this, do you want to start hosting some leadership workshops up at this place that's right up on the coast in Bar Harbor? I'm like, no, Scott, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do great leadership retreats with awesome business owners and beautiful places like
in
Bar
exotic
Harbor.
places. No, I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah. So, just things like that, or even just the simple things like, last couple of years, I've been blessed. My oldest is a college baseball player at a university. It's a couple hours from here. I can drive up there for a 4 p.m. game. I've taken calls on the way to there. I've found secluded places away from there where I've done some emergency coaching sessions during games to help clients out. And they know that I'm there and they don't care. And you know what I mean? It's just having that. I mean, you said it, the freedom and the flexibility. The money's great. Don't get me wrong. And it's afforded our family some opportunity to do some things, but I could never buy back the opportunity to go get to watch my son play outfield and steal bases and throw guys out. I mean, there's no money on the planet that covers that.
Yeah, I love it. That is absolutely fantastic. Well, it's always great to talk to franchisees that have had such great success like you have. Obviously, you got your money back on your investment. It's worked out amazingly well for you. I tell people all the time that a franchise could be right for everybody. The question is, what franchise? And that's the key, because oftentimes people don't necessarily select the franchise that's most appropriate for them. They get emotionally attached to something, and this as a coach. So having said that and everything else we discussed already, final thoughts for today, words of wisdom for folks listening.
I think when you're considering doing what you're doing and where you want to go, I guess I'll go back to that notion that there's no price on being able to have some freedom and control on what you're doing. I mean, in a world that continues to demand our time and energy in more and more ways, I think I wanted that when I started a franchise, as a franchisee, I should say. And I guess I didn't even realize how important and valuable that was, even when I was trying to get it, until I've received it and I've started to experience that. And so, if you're thinking about on your own versus franchising, I think you got to really think about what does that world look like for you a few years down the road? Because like with any business, when you get started, a franchise isn't necessarily a guarantee to start printing money kind of day one. So, once you give yourself that appropriate time, what do you want that to look like for you? And whatever that freedom is for you, can this opportunity that you're looking at really, can you envision that? Can it create that for you? And then, like we said before, it's all about people. And I don't care what kind of franchise you're in, find a group of franchisees that are rooting you on and cheering you on and want to be able to support you, because that kind of support is the kind of thing when you're down, it picks you up. And when you're riding high, one of the things as a business owner, sometimes it's kind of lonely. And so having that network to celebrate those wins with you and help you maybe realize even more than you felt how successful you've been in being able to see that. Those things are, for somebody like me, those intangibles are priceless.
Love it. Well, Brad, I really appreciate you being here and spending time with me and my listeners, because, it's from the heart. Brad Schneider, the growth coach, franchisee. Thank you so much. And I wish you continued success.
Thank you very much for having me, and have yourself a very Merry Christmas or whatever holiday that you choose to celebrate.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.